Hello everyone, and welcome back. There are nights when the world feels just a little thinner, when the shadows deepen and the air grows thick with something we can't quite name. These are the nights when strange things happen, things that defy logic, things that linger in the dark corners of our minds long after dawn is broken. One such night unfolded on a desolate road in Polk County, Wisconsin, where a dairy farmer stumbled upon something he could never fully explain, something that would haunt him for the rest of his days. This is the story of William Bosak and of the encounter that changed his life forever. I'm Matt, and this is Matt's Mysteries. It was a bone-chilling night on December the 2nd, 1974, as 68-year-old William Bosak, a dairy farmer in Polk County, Wisconsin, made his way home from a co-op meeting in Frederick. The clock had just struck 10 p.m., and Bosak, who had owned and worked a vast 450-acre farm for nearly 4 decades, was eager to return to the familiar warmth and safety of his home. A heavy fog hung low over the rural landscape, casting an eerie pall over the lonely stretch of road that led to his farm. This fog was dense and impenetrable, an ocean of mist that seemed to swallow everything in its path. Shadows danced across the road as his headlights cut through the murk, barely illuminating the way forward. Bosak was no stranger to these rural roads. He knew every twist and turn, every pothole, and every landmark. But that night, something felt different. His instincts were heightened, a strange tension hung in the air, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't entirely alone. Less than a mile from the comfort of his farmstead, a glint of something unusual caught his eye. At first, he could barely make it out in the fog, just a flash of something metallic. However, as he drew closer, the strange sight became something unmistakable. A mysterious object was sitting just off the road. As Bosak approached, he slowed his truck to a crawl, his heart beginning to race. The object, whatever it was, began to take shape, resembling nothing he had ever seen before. It was sleek and metallic, shaped like a bullet and positioned to the left of the road. Its silhouette hovered above the ground, suspended in a manner that defied logic. Or so it appeared. Bosak couldn't actually be sure if the craft was floating, or if the thick fog merely obscured its lower portion, creating the illusion of levitation. I think that's a fair assessment. He peered through the windshield, with his eyes straining to make sense of the unearthly sight. By this point, Bosak had brought his vehicle to a complete stop, his truck idling in the dead silence of the night. There, in the middle of the fog-laden road, he stared at the craft, frozen by a mixture of fear and fascination. He noted the front of the strange object, where a large, curved window dominated the design. It was through this window where Bosak could see into the brightly illuminated interior, a bizarre tableau that sent a shiver down his spine. Inside the craft, a figure moved suddenly. It was a creature of some kind, though certainly not like any animal or human Bosak had ever laid eyes on. This being was taller than the average man, standing with its arms raised, as though it were gesturing a level of distress or surprise. Bosak's heart thundered in his chest as he struggled to process what he was seeing. The figure had the general shape of a man, but bore the unmistakable characteristics of something wholly alien. Later, Bosak would recount the incident with vivid clarity.
I can remember it just as if it were yesterday. It was a little taller than a tall man. I could see a figure with its arms raised above its head. He was looking out the window, and it was a different kind of character than you'd see on this earth. It looked a good deal like a man, but it had a different looking face than you'd see. It had a kind of cow-looking face.
This haunting description echoed in Bosak's mind as he continued to observe the strange being. He struggled to find the words to describe it, repeatedly referring to it as the human, though clearly it was anything but. I mean, I don't know about you, but last I checked, humans don't have cow faces and panic in hovering bullets. Anyway, the creature's face was almost comically square, and a layer of dark, tan fur covered its body, except for its chin and its face. Its hair jutted out horizontally from the sides of its head, framing a pair of large, protruding eyes. Much like the rest of the creature, its ears also struck him as particularly bizarre, because they extended out from the creature's head, similar to those of a calf. Bosak was certain about what he had seen, but the memory was hazy and strange, almost dreamlike. He went on to add further details, saying,
It had dark, tan fur, except for its face and chin. It had a square face with hair sticking straight out from the sides. The ears stuck out from the head about 3 inches, and the eyes were large and protruding. The ears were calf-like.
Some have speculated that the fur Bosak described may not have been fur at all. Perhaps it was a sort of suit or covering, much like the skin-tight attire described in some encounters with the so-called Greys, where the aliens appear to wear metallic or foil-like clothing. Also, at least they have the decency to wear clothing, unlike those degenerate Greys that like to abduct people and parade around in the nude. Anyway, this theory, like so many aspects of Bosak's story, remains shrouded in mystery. What struck Bosak most deeply, however, was the creature's expression, an unmistakable look of fear. In a way that Bosak couldn't fully comprehend, he felt that this alien creature, this strange visitor from another world, was as terrified of him as he was of it. For nearly 50 years since that night, people have speculated about what kind of being Bosak encountered. One theory posits that the creature was a fugitive, trapped or imprisoned within the craft, hence its look of desperation and fear. Another suggests that it could have been an emissary from an alien civilization, startled by an encounter with an unfamiliar species, just like how Bosak himself was startled by the alien presence. Alright, there's another, more whimsical theory that claims that this creature could be a highly evolved, time-traveling, or possibly interdimensional descendant of the domestic cow, a connection drawn from its calf-like ears and cow-like face. Some time-traveling future humanoid cow theorists even propose the strange idea that this creature might somehow be related to the very cows that Bosak tended to on his farm. That's also hilarious. Anyway, whether emissary or fugitive, time traveler or interdimensional visitor, This creature was undeniably out of this world. They locked eyes for what seemed like an eternity, both human and creature frozen in a moment of mutual terror and wonder. As the reality of his situation set in, Bosak was overtaken by a primal, unshakable fear. He snapped out of his trance and floored the accelerator, his only thought to escape this chilling encounter. The truck lurched forward, tires screeching as he sped past the strange craft and its eerie occupant, his pulse pounding as he fled. However, Bosak's ordeal was far from over. As he sped along the rural road, heart racing and mind reeling, he noticed something odd. The lights inside his truck dimmed dramatically, as though a shadow had descended upon him, blotting out the interior in an oppressive darkness. It was as if the light itself was being drained by some unseen force. At this point, the engine also began to struggle, its once steady roar dwindling to a weak whisper, barely keeping the truck in motion. Bosak then described hearing a strange sound, a kind of whooshing sound, followed by the unsettling scrape of metal against metal, a noise reminiscent of a tree branch scraping the roof of a car, or what you Earthlings call dubstep. Anyway, desperate to outrun whatever unnatural force had overtaken him, Bosak pressed down on the accelerator again, hurtling through the darkness. All he wanted was to make it home, to the safety of his farmhouse where he could finally escape this nightmare. When he arrived, he scrambled out of his truck, his hands still trembling, and he took a moment to gather his thoughts. Peering back down the road, he searched the stretch of fog-covered pavement for any signs of the mysterious craft and its unsettling occupant. But there was nothing. The craft had seemingly vanished into the night, swallowed by the same dense fog that had masked its arrival. Whether Bosak managed to sleep that night remains unknown. However, the encounter left a profound mark on him. The following morning, as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, he felt a strange pull to return to the scene of the encounter. Despite the lingering fear in his chest, he drove back to that lonely stretch of road. The fog had lifted, and in the light of day, the landscape was empty and ordinary. As he surveyed the area, he noticed a small anomaly, a circular patch of flattened earth, about 6 feet in diameter, marking the place where he'd seen the craft. Now, Bosak was a practical man, someone grounded in the hard realities of farm life, and he feared what others might think if he shared such a wild story. He was worried that speaking of an alien encounter would ruin his reputation, branding him as a fool or a liar, and so he kept quiet. Not even his wife or son heard of the incident for nearly a month. Yet, he couldn't shake the fear that had settled so deep into his bones.
I was so darn scared.
He later confessed.
I was afraid to go out at night for a few days.
Listen, I think I speak for most when I say this apprehension to go public with his story makes sense. After all, how many alleged alien encounters come from Cletus after he drank a little too much turpentine? That's not to say all people who encounter alleged extraterrestrial visitors are crazy, but there's a staggeringly high number of those that do fit the description. Eventually, Bosak could no longer keep the story to himself. He finally told his family, and slowly, word began to spread. His story eventually reached the St. Paul Pioneer Press, where it sparked a flurry of curiosity and disbelief. I completely understand why. It's not every day you pick up the paper and see a frightened cowman on the front page. And if it is every day for you, I think you live in a more interesting city than me. Anyway, among those intrigued were Everett E. Leitner and Dewey Burscheid, field investigators from the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, a Wisconsin-based group dedicated to UFO investigations. The organization's founders, Jim and Coral Lorenzen, had long been interested in reports of extraterrestrial encounters, and Bosak's story piqued their interest. When Leitner and Burscheid met with Bosak, he confirmed that the newspaper's account was mostly accurate, though he clarified that the creature's ears sat higher on its head than originally reported. They spoke with Bosak's family and neighbors, who all attested to his honesty and integrity. Even in the face of skepticism, doubt, and a divided community, Bosak held firm to his story.
You know how the neighbors are. They questioned it. The editor in town didn't believe it. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be skeptical after hearing what happened to me. But if people don't believe me, I'll take a lie detector test to prove this isn't just something I made up.
In the years that followed, Bosak's encounter became a point of fascination and speculation. If his account was true, then it posed a profound question. What did he see that night? As I mentioned earlier, theories range from the plausible to the fantastical, each theory attempting to piece together the enigma of his experience. Some believe Bosak encountered a lone alien, trapped and afraid, possibly a refugee from a distant world. Others argue that this creature may have been an interdimensional traveler or even a future descendant of Earth's cattle, evolved to a degree that defies our understanding of both biology and time. And again, that's hilarious. Skeptics, of course, dismiss this theory as a mere hallucination, a trick of light and fog, or perhaps even a sleep-deprived vision. But for Bosak, the memory remained vivid and real. He often lamented his reaction, wishing he could have mustered the courage to communicate with the creature rather than fleeing.
I wished that somebody had been in the car with me at the time. I should have stopped and tried to show it I was friendly. I wish I could meet up with it again.
He would go on to say,
There are other people that had seen something like that, right in this area.
Now, who these other people are and what they had allegedly seen remain shrouded in mystery. Could Bosak have said there were more people with more sightings as an attempt at adding strength to his claims? Or did others truly come forward, requesting anonymity to avoid the same ridicule that may have come Bosak's way? And while we're on that subject, just what did Bosak see? Personally, I don't know what to make of this. If you watch my other episodes covering extraterrestrial encounters, you'll know that space is big. Incomprehensibly, inconceivably, laughably big. Like, get this, the observable universe is estimated to be over 90 billion light years in diameter, and that doesn't account for anything that may lay beyond the cosmic edge. Given our understanding of space travel and the energy requirements necessary to cross the vacuum of space, it's pretty unlikely that we've been visited. Unless they live in our backyard. Anyway, I know I'm not alone when I say that I remain hopeful that there are little green men getting into hijinks somewhere out there. But unless they have access to some sort of science fiction wizardry that lets them travel across the stars at ludicrous speeds, or, just teleport them from place to place, or some sort of physics-breaking phenomenon that exists that lets them warp the space around them, the chances of them visiting our pale blue dot, scaring elderly men in floating bullets, is super low. And so, realist Matt thinks that this may genuinely be a case of an overworked, overtired, overwhelmed man seeing something that wasn't there, with the heavy fog and his car's headlights being partly to blame. Although, having said that, because Buzzkill Matt is still chained in the basement, and realist Matt really doesn't want to go back there, I'm going to be fun and say that it was a future cow visiting his great, I'm going to stop saying great, but you get the idea, great grandfather, because once again, that's hilarious. Whether Bosak's story is an elaborate tale or a genuine encounter with the unknown, the mystery endures. It's a tale that speaks to our deepest fears and curiosities, the universal wonder about what lies beyond our world. Those fog-covered roads of Polk County may have swallowed the craft and its inhabitant, but the legend of William Bosak and his encounter lives on. Do you believe in aliens? And if you do you believe that Bosak stumbled upon one while driving home on that cold December night 50 years ago? Thank you so much for tuning in to today's mystery. If there's a mystery you'd like me to cover, don't hesitate to leave a comment on the video, or send an email to mattsmysterystories@gmail.com. If you like what you saw and are interested in supporting me on my journey, consider subscribing to the channel. I post once a week, and will drop the occasional bonus episode if I have time. It goes without saying, the world is full of mystery, and I hope to share as many of them with you as possible. Until the next one, this is Matt telling you to stay mysterious.